Hello, Sunshine. I'm Alexi, Lalas, and welcome to the State of the Union podcast, where we look at the beautiful game on and off the field through the lens of red, white, and blue-colored glasses. This week, we'll be talking, El Trafico, we'll wrap that up, VAR, as always, Senso, CCL, Bruce, City, Liverpool, Words, Gio, Copa America, Savile, Super Bowl versus World Cup, U.S. Women's National Team, and so much more. But first, joining me, as always, my friend, my colleague, my guiding light, David Mosse, a soccer savant and a Fox Soccer researcher and writer extraordinaire. Mosse, how are you on this Monday, April 11th of the year 2022?
Doing well and excited to be back in the studio for the first time in a couple of weeks.
It has been a couple of weeks, so if you're hearing much better quality, both in terms of the audio and maybe even in terms of the performance, because I'm staring into the eyes of the great David Mosse, it's because we are here. We are back in the studio. You see anything interesting this week, my friend?
Lots, but I'm going to focus on one thing.
Here we go.
Last night was the final episode of Killing Eve, which is a show on BBC America. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's about this female assassin who works for this mysterious organization, the 12.
Okay.
And there's a female agent that's been chasing her. It's sort of this cat and mouse game.
This was the climax? This is the end? This is the last ever, or just the last for the season?
Last ever. This show scores a lot of points with the woke crowd because the two main characters are female and they have this sexual attraction to each other.
Okay.
I have such a complicated relationship with the show. The first season was 8 episodes long, and the first 6 episodes were some of the best television I've ever seen in my life.
Okay.
And had it just been a 1-season, 8-episode miniseries, which a lot of these British shows are, and they had stuck the landing, it would have gone down as one of my favorite TV shows ever. But instead, they felt compelled to make it a several-season show, which already...
How many seasons are we at?
Ended up being 4.
Oh, my God. All right.
Which already affected the end of the first season because they had to figure out contrived ways to keep all the main characters alive. And then they did 3 subsequent seasons, and I've never seen a show have the plot go off the rails more than this television show. And it really was just 3 seasons of smoke and mirrors after that very good first one. And yet I hung in there because I dug the whole Euro vibe of it. It takes place across different European cities. I found the female assassin character, Villanelle, played by Jodie Comer, very compelling. And plus, because they had those first 6 great episodes, I kept hoping that the magic would come back at some point, and it never did. I don't think I liked a single episode of this show in seasons 2, 3, and 4, and yet I devoted hours and hours of my life to it until the very end, and here we are.
Well, that probably says about, that definitely says how great that first season was. I mean, we have the phrase "jump the shark" because of situations like this where there is greatness, and then in an effort to continue the greatness, and when I say greatness, I mean generating money oftentimes, they continue to do it, and they run out of ideas, or it just gets stale, or the actors aren't there. So, all right. So, but if was there a cliffhanger after the first season, in that could I just watch the first season and just be done with it? Or would I be wanting more?
No, they ended it on a cliffhanger.
Okay. All right. Well, all right. I'm not watching it anyway, so... anything else that you watched?
I have lots of other stuff, but I do want to... Are we going to bring Luis into this opening segment? Is that what you told me?
Well, so I came in a little earlier than you, and I heard all sorts of whispers and murmurs going on in the background. And if for those of you that have followed us for any length of time, you will remember that Luis was first to market, if you will, when it came to what was the name? Parasite, right? Remember that incredible phenomenon of a movie? And I'm getting the Parasite vibes over here for a movie that him and a lot of the young folks here in the studio have been watching. What is the name of this thing that you guys were screaming and yelling about? Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. And I looked it up a little bit here, and it's where is it from? What country is it out of? Do we know? It's out of the U.S.? Yeah. Okay. It's kind of, the way it's described online is a sci-fi dark comedy. Would that be fair? Oh, yeah. Okay, cool. And you do give it thumbs up? 2 thumbs up. Incredible thumbs up. I got thumbs up coming from all over the studio here. So this is one now you can only see in the theaters, right? Yeah. It's one of those. Okay. Yeah, I don't go to the theaters anymore. I mean, if I can't, well, eventually I'll be able to stream it at some point, but I will check it out. I will check it out because these, I mean, they were going gaga over here about this. So I had never even heard of it until it was mentioned here. So we will see if that, if it really lives up to the billing of all the folks here. All right, what did I watch this week? A couple of things. One, it's a documentary on Netflix. These are both on Netflix, actually. Senso, Murder of a Soccer Star. Which goes back to the 2014 murder of Bafana, the South African national team goalkeeper, Senso Mayiwa, and all of the controversy and the drama and the unknown around his death. And it's really interesting. It's really interesting to go into what happened or what they think happened at that moment. I won't give it all away, but definitely worth it. And yeah, it attracted me because of the soccer angle of it. Him being this goalkeeper, and this very, very good goalkeeper that was kind of on his way to be great, and was cut down. But it's even more than just about the soccer stuff. As a matter of fact, the soccer stuff becomes secondary as you go through it. But anyway, definitely worth it. And then the other one is just I guess it would be a entertaining but horrifying documentary called Jimmy Savile, or Savile or whatever, a British horror story about this guy. I'd never even heard of him, but evidently was incredibly popular in Britain. In the television industry, and he was this larger than life character that made kids' wishes come true, and was like this kind of Willy Wonka, Doug Henning type of figure. And come to find out after his death in 2011 that decades and decades of abuse were going on with him involved allegedly. So, but it's an incredible look back at this person that everybody thought they knew and loved, and did not turn out to be. But it was really, really interesting to see that for someone, like I said, that was incredibly famous and all over the place, but it didn't translate overseas to the U.S. in that I never even had heard of him. But now I do, on the most unfortunate of circumstances, given what he did in his life. Anything else, Mosse?
Well, the only other thing worth mentioning is Atlanta, which is the other thing Luis Aguilar was buzzing about this morning. The interesting thing about this show is they were away for several years. They came back, and 2 of the 4 episodes they've done so far have been bottle episodes in which none of the main characters appeared. Think of the confidence a show has to have to pull that off, and yet they have. I greatly enjoyed those 2 episodes, and I greatly enjoyed the 2 where the main cast was back together again. So that show is firing on all cylinders. Very happy to have it back in my life, as I mentioned last week, and I'll reiterate that again this week.
Remember how you got me turned on to what was the meth thing? What was the
Breaking Bad?
The Breaking Bad thing, right? Remember we talked about Breaking Bad. News out of the Breaking Bad camp that Better Call Saul, that was the one that came after, right?
Better Call Saul, yes.
Saul, whatever. So Walter White and Jesse evidently are appearing now on Better Call Saul.
Better Call Saul is essentially a prequel of Breaking Bad, and we're far enough in the story now where it's getting pretty close to where Breaking Bad started, so it doesn't surprise me that they're going to do that. I can't wait. The final season of Better Call Saul starts, I think, this week, maybe. Was it April 18th?
Wow, okay. All right.
Or it's coming up. So a week from today, we're taping this
Well, the
Monday,
sooner it's
April
over,
11th.
the sooner I can start it. So,
and yeah, phenomenal show. I can't wait to see how they bring it to a close. Kim Wexler, one of my favorite all-time TV characters.
All right, you ready to light this candle?
Yeah.
All right, let's just dive right into it. We are coming off a weekend of all sorts of incredible soccer and incredible games. Let's start, shall we, with El Trafico. Should we do that?
Let's do it.
Okay. El Trafico. First off, I don't think I've ever asked you, are you cool with the name or not?
Yeah, it's grown on me.
It's grown on you. I don't understand this adverse reaction. I mean, it's natural. If you don't like it, you don't like it. But I don't understand why there is this pushback, and there continues to be this pushback for folks. I think it's completely appropriate. I think it's distinctive. I think it's unique, and I think it's awesome. But people have different ideas. Regardless, it happened, and it's happening at a time when we are looking at the Los Angeles teams, and I know there's people out there right now, they're going, oh, rolling their eyes, here they go, they're going to talk about Los Angeles again. Well, you know what? These are two big teams that right now are much better than they were last year. I think both in reality and certainly in perception right now. And yeah, it's a big deal when they play against each other. And I think it lived up to billing once again. These games have actually been pretty good over the years. And, you know, we can look back and we actually showed a bunch of the incredible moments that have happened in the past, whether it's Carlos Vela or anybody else or Zlatan. But we also had not just the Galaxy at its height so far this year, and it's still early days, and the LAFC, but also Carlos Vela and Chicharito both healthy and starting for their teams. And they did not disappoint. It ended up being 2-1, and we'll get into some of the details here. In general, what were your impressions of El Trafico?
I did not think the Galaxy played that well. They're generally a team that likes to be on the front foot, but they sat back quite a bit in this match and let LAFC have the ball. But they were able to get a result, so it's a very nice win for them. Chicharito comes up big again, scoring that first goal on the header. Vela had a chance to answer back, but hit the post on that giveaway. And yeah, the very exciting game, tons of drama right until the end, which we're going to get to. So I think it lived up to the billing. You know, and a very nice one for the Galaxy. We'll see what it means as the season progresses. But for now, so far, so good.
A lot of season to play. I agree with you. I thought the Galaxy was completely outplayed in the second half. And I thought had this game finished up 2-2, and there was a moment there where we thought it was going to, it would have been completely fair. So while from an LAFC perspective, you lost the game, I don't think that this is red flags flying up. This is a good LAFC team that is going to continue to get better, and this is a good Galaxy team. Chicharito, we had talked to Chicharito the day before the game, as we often do. You know, we talked to the coaches, we talked to some players, and you know he's been talking to everybody, and I love that. I would much rather that than somebody, unfortunately, like Carlos Vela, that basically talks to nobody. He did a couple interviews, but Chicharito, at one point, I asked him to at least attempt to explain to people how he gets free in the box. You know, he is an incredible poacher. He's gotten certainly better with time, but it's always been his bread and butter is his ability to get free and to score in the box. And he will readily admit that, you know, he even told us that if you mixed him as Chicharito and what he does and Carlos Vela together, you would have the perfect and the strongest El Tri player ever. And I actually agree with him. But what Chicharito does well and better than a lot of people out there is find ways to create space for himself. And look, he took about 20 minutes to explain to us. I don't necessarily think that we were enlightened too much because sometimes it's hard to explain something that you feel inside. And yes, there are, you know, physical things that you do to get yourself free. And yes, you learn over time about timing and where to be and when to be. But a lot of it is just thousands and thousands of calculations and best case scenarios of when the ball is here, where it's going to go, where can I be, where is my defender, all of those different things. But if you are going to study somebody in the box in terms of getting free, you can do much worse. He is pretty incredible. And I love the fact that you have a star who is in Major League Soccer, which I think because of the manufactured parity makes it at times difficult for stars to really shine because you don't have that separation. You don't have the haves and the have-nots and the stars that are kind of playing on the elite teams that kind of beat up on other teams. For him to continue to score goals when everybody knows he's out there and everybody is focusing on him, and for him to continue to get free in the box, it is a gift. It is a gift. And, you know, like I said, I asked him to explain it, but at a certain point, you kind of just have to sit back and say, it's something innate. It's something I have in me. And it's probably impossible to teach. But when you find those people that are able to do that, they are incredibly valuable, as Chicharito was. So he gets the first game, or the first goal by drifting away. And a constant throughout the weekend was some questionable goaltending in Major League Soccer. And I don't know if it's a bug or something like that, but it is going around because there were some ridiculous displays of goalkeeping. And in particular for LAFC, which actually went out and got Maxime Crépeau. And I actually think that was a huge addition because they have been struggling since their inception to really have somebody that is quality in goal. He was in no man's land on that goal, came out, kind of flapped his arms, and Chicharito not only got free, but headed it actually under him to score the goal. The Galaxy is off to the races, and everything's going well in that first half. But as we mentioned, second half was a different story. Where do you want to pick it up?
Well, yeah, as you mentioned, Koulibaly made it 2-0. And then Arango pulled one back. My golden boot pick finally got his first goal of the season.
He didn't start, though.
That prediction is looking embarrassing. The guy's not even going to be a starter for them. He'd be lucky to score 10 goals this season. But nevertheless, he pulls one back. And then we have the craziness late. Now, my hot take is I think people are focusing on the wrong play in this game. But I'll get to that in a second. Let's start at the end with the play that everybody is focusing on.
Yeah, so it's back and forth, but as I said, LA really kind of started pouring it on, or LAFC really started pouring on the Galaxy in that second half.
Now, I'll just get this out of the way. I'm of the opinion this was a clear offsides. I think LAFC were blatantly offsides twice on this play. I don't see what the big controversy is. I thought they did a very good job of explaining it, and we have the explanation here, so I don't know if you want to talk over this video.
So it's at the very end of the game. It's 2-1, as we said, and LAFC think they have found the equalizer here. Really what this comes down to is a couple of things. Number one, if there is a subjective part of this decision, it's whether the LA Galaxy defender deliberately made a play at the ball. Because if that Galaxy defender does deliberately make a play at the ball, then in that moment, it's a new play, and therefore it wouldn't have been offside. It was determined that he didn't, in this deflection that happens here, make a deliberate attempt to actually play the ball. You can see as it bounces off Blessing there, right there. And so if that's the case, then Fall, who was in the offside position, comes back, gets the ball and is offside. That in and of itself, it makes sense, and I'll get to the subjective part of it in a second. But even if you don't like that, there's another offside, as you mentioned, Mosse, that you can check off too. So really, there's two bites at the apple to be correct from a referee standpoint and from a VAR standpoint making this. Does it? If you're LAFC, you're gonna when that subjective part comes up, you're gonna say he did make a play on the ball. There were a couple of people that got in touch with me after this, and this is, I think, where some of the discussion, and rightfully so, comes, is that if this, it took a while to figure this out, and you're going back and forth, then is it really a clearly and obviously a wrong decision that was made? Again, I think that's dangerous, because if it takes somebody lots of time, or if it takes somebody many, many views of something to ultimately get to that decision, that doesn't mean that it's not clear and obvious. It just means that it took longer and took more looks at it to get to that moment of being clear and obvious. That's not going to help LAFC. Ultimately, I think, like you said, they got this right. They had two opportunities to get this right. The referees came out very, very quickly, and they explained what was going on, both in real time to what, at that point, John Strong and Stu Holden were broadcasting the game. So we got that in. And then after the fact, releasing videos, and you can't see it if you're just listening, but we have the videos playing behind us. So you can see the actual explanation as to why this was the correct call. But you, Mosse, are pointing to something else.
Just to chime in on this play, there's, to your point, there's no objective disagreement about where the players are in relation to each other. Nobody disputes that when Vela swings in that cross, Mamadou Fall is in an offsides position, and then when it nicks off Blessing, Mamadou Fall still is in an offsides position. The disagreement is there are people that think the manner in which Nick Depew connects with that ball would negate the offsides and start a new phase of the play. And my interpretation of that rule, that's not even close to meeting that threshold.
To making a deliberate play on the ball.
Yeah, right. and starting a new phase of the play, and certainly not the second time around either. So that's why I say, to me, those are, twice on the same play, they were blatantly offsides. I don't even see it as a big controversy. The play that I don't think is getting talked about enough is that Vela header off a set piece in the first half. Mm-hmm. Now, I asked Luis Aguilar to obtain the video for that play, and he failed me. So, folks, as you're listening to this podcast, if you want to just fire it up on YouTube maybe and follow along, what happened there was the linesman raised his flag, and in American sports, the original call is very important. It has to be really clear and obvious evidence to overturn an original call. And I must admit, there wasn't clear and obvious evidence that Vela was onside. So once the flag went up, I understand why they stuck with the original call and chalked off the goal. But I'm also very confident that had the linesman kept his flag down, VAR wouldn't have overturned that either, that the goal would have stood. And we took part in seminars we do every year.
Wait, you don't think they would have overturned it because it would have been too close?
Yeah, I don't think there was clear and obvious evidence either way. So whatever the original call was by the linesman, it would have stood. And, we take part in the seminar with MLS hosted by Howard Webb on officiating at the start of every season. And they've made it pretty clear that plays that are this close, they'd prefer for the end result of it to be a goal. Without coming out and criticizing the Premier League, you could tell they kind of look at it somewhat derisively at the way the Premier League has done it with the lines and being so forensic about it and calling these millimetric armpit, nose hair offsides. And MLS has made it clear we don't want to go down that route. Now, they might have only ended up in this place just because they didn't have the ability to put as many cameras in the stadium, right, and didn't want to pay for all the technology. But however we got here, I think they've actually landed in a better place when it comes to offsides because plays like this are generally given as a goal. So if I was LAFC, I'd be frustrated because, an interesting play to compare it to is, again, folks listening, if you're on YouTube now, if you want to fire up the LAFC LA Galaxy 2019 playoff game, which was actually in that countdown we did at the top of the show as the best El Traficos ever. And check out the second LAFC goal in that game and the build-up to it. Check out where Brian Rodriguez was when he receives the pass that he then squares to Vela for the goal. And that looks way more offsides than this. And that goal stood because that was deemed close enough that we want to give the benefit to the attacker. And yet in this case, they did not give the benefit of the attacker and the goal was chalked off. Again, if it was the Premier League, we wouldn't even bat an eye because they've made it clear that's how they want to do offsides, which is why in the City-Liverpool game, which we're going to talk about later, that Sterling goal disallowed in the second half hasn't been all that controversial because people are kind of used to the Premier League doing it that way. But MLS generally does it a different way, and that was what I would call a Premier League offsides in an MLS game. So that was a bit jarring to me. Your thoughts?
What do you want the AR to do? Because there is... they have been told to, if it's close, let it go. But if it's close is still subjective, right?
Absolutely.
So these men and women are there saying, well, it's close or it's not close. And I've also heard people, when you are watching it and you think that it's not close, scream and yell as, why don't you just put the flag up? We know it's offside. We can see it's offside. Just put the flag up. But again, these are trying to define words that ultimately are subjective in their definition and relative to whatever human being it is there. So in that moment, absolutely, I think that LAFC has a gripe in the Carlos Vela thing and the goal that was called back for the AR doing in that moment what traditionally we have had ARs doing. But in the world that we live in right now, if I'm an AR right now, rather than get yelled at, I'm just letting everything go, and then let VAR clean it up if it was wrong. So, it's a tangled web we weave with VAR. But I still love it. Anything else El Trafico wise?
No, we can move on to other games.
All right, what do you want to go to? Miami?
They finally get their first win of the season. Leonardo Campana with a hat trick. So good for them. Phil Neville can breathe a sigh of relief here. But the bigger story for me is New England lose again, 4 in a row for them. 4 in a row. They are, Inter Miami still last in the East, but New England are second to last, 13th place. This is a team that won the Supporters Shield last year, collecting an MLS record 73 points. What the heck is going on with the Revs? What the heck is going on? All right, well, before we get to the Revs, back to Miami. Congratulations to Miami. You won your first game, and you're still in last place. When it comes to Mr. Neville over there, it is a hot seat. It should be much hotter, but we know that he has a very long leash, and you could see that there was a huge sense of relief on his face. Keep in mind that this was also done without Higuain, who was hurt
maybe, but seems like he was hurt. So the first win comes without your major star on the field. When it comes to New England, this is not a good start. This is also not the first time that we have seen teams, and right now you got NYCFC and New England struggling and down at the bottom of the table. Need I remind you, the Supporters Shield winner and MLS Cup winner. It's difficult to be consistent, which is why I think that someone like Seattle deserves the consistent praise that we give, because their ability to be elite year after year after year, even when they're successful, when they win MLS Cup, when they go on streaks, when they have great players, when they change players, all of that kind of stuff, that is an incredible feat in Major League Soccer. So that what we considered good and even great teams from last year are struggling this season, that in and of itself shouldn't be a surprise. I did not think that New England was going to struggle this bad. Now, you don't have Matt Turner in goal. And, I was talking about goalkeeping, right, earlier, or the lack of goalkeeping, the poor goalkeeping that we saw this weekend in Major League Soccer. That's a big deal because he has saved them and did save them. And you could probably calculate the amount of points that someone like Matt Turner has helped over the last couple of years with New England. So not having him in goal isn't great. And Bruce Arena is very honest. And after the game, he said, we have injuries. We have players that aren't stepping up. We have stars that aren't stepping up. Our goalkeeping's not good enough. Our center back situation, especially when it comes to injuries. So all of that is, I guess, valid and fair for Bruce Arena to talk about, but he's there to figure it out, and he's there to get this team back on track. And right now, I think that they will be good this year, not even close to the greatness that we saw last year, but I don't think that this is a situation where we are looking at from a first to worst type of scenario. They will get the points, and they will get points going forward. But this is obviously not a good start for them. The Pink looked great in the win. They were pretty in pink from Inter Miami, and Campana hat trick. Well done. So congratulations to Inter Miami getting a win down there in Miami. And when I say Miami, I mean Fort Lauderdale.
It's amazing how many Ecuadorians there are in MLS. MLS has built up quite a pipeline there. A lot of.
Well, I went down for a few months on loan there, and I basically laid the seeds, many decades ago for that culture to emerge. Emelec.
The Philadelphia Union beat Columbus 1-0. They are the last unbeaten team. They are your current Supporters Shield leaders.
You want your weekly praising of Jim Curtin?
And that guy coach or what, Alexi?
Man, it's good. It's good. It's very good. I mean, I know Philadelphia folks are out there saying, "Why you guys talk about him? Why you guys talk about 16 points, 6 games played, 5 wins, 1 tie." They don't miss a beat. They don't miss a beat even when they get rid of players, Shabilko, whatever. They just keep cruising right along, and they are led by somebody who I think understands perfectly what his team is, what he wants his team to be, and congratulations to them. So if we're going to heap praise on anyone this week, it should go to the Philadelphia Union and Jim Curtin for having them at the top. Now, they got the win. Again, Eloy Room, the goalkeeper for Columbus, basically put the ball in his own net. So you need a little bit of luck. Even if you're great teams, you need a little bit of luck. But this continued that trend that we saw throughout the weekend of goalkeepers just having nightmares. We saw it in multiple games, including the game in Philadelphia, the game in Red Bulls that they lost to Montreal. So it just went on and on and on.
My compatriot Carlos Coronel with a nightmare moment there, it was
not good.
Trying to be Manuel Neuer.
It was not good. All right, let's get to something good. Right?
I mentioned Jim Curtin can coach. You know who else can coach?
Oh, here we go.
Miguel Angel Ramirez, the second coming of Pep Guardiola.
You're all in then, right?
Yes.
You're all in on Charlotte.
They beat Atlanta 1-0. That's their 3rd win of the season. They're up to 5th in the East. We thought this might be a Cincinnati-like train wreck, and frankly, Miguel Angel Ramirez thought they might be headed for that kind of season based on his comments, but
he sandbagged us at the beginning.
Yeah, unbelievable. What do you make of this?
So first off, the environment in Charlotte, they had 30 plus thousand people there. That was great. I mean, remember the 75 that we had at the beginning of the year, and that curiosity factor. And even that was a game that they actually lost to the Los Angeles Galaxy. So we were all curious to see where would it come down to? What was the mean? And ultimately, this was a wonderful atmosphere. Atlanta, I don't think they weren't horrible. And by the way, it came on the heels of the news of Joseph Martinez, who was not right. And he knew something that was wrong. And obviously there was something wrong because he got his knee checked out, and they went back and did some surgery. So he's going to be out from 6 to 8 weeks. So hopefully this gets it right, because they definitely need him up there. But this wasn't a horrible performance from Atlanta, but this is the rivalry. And I told you before, when I had been talking to the Atlanta folks about rivalries, they all told me that, no, it's not about Nashville or anybody else or Orlando or anything like that. It's really about Charlotte, and you could see it on display. And this is going to be a nice little rivalry going forward. So actually, from a rivalry perspective, this is great. 1-0 for Charlotte, and what a goal! An Olympico off the corner, and it goes in. How much credit do people get for Olympicos, and how much is it goalkeeping? In this case, it would be Brad Guzan in goal.
I mean, depends how intentional you think it is. This one, I'm going to put more on Guzan. What do you think?
Yeah, you should have saved this. You should have saved this one. I mean, look, there's a lot going on a corner kick that sometimes is lost in the visual of it, but there's obviously a lot of moving parts. There's a force sometimes that you have to work through. There's the spin, there's the wind, there's all those different things that are going on. But you should not get scored on directly on a corner kick if you're a goalkeeper, no matter what is happening, because you should be able to see it. It is certainly within your area, and unless you're fouled or blindsided or something like that, you should save it. It doesn't make it any more exciting. Doesn't make it any more worthy of praise and joy, and the people celebrated as they should. A big win against what I think is your biggest rival of Atlanta, and now you're sitting pretty in 5th place right now, still very close and within a win here or a win there. This changes dramatically, but Charlotte on April 11th, this Monday, sitting 5th place in the Eastern Conference and well within a playoff spot. That's something to hang your hat on.
San Jose lose 4-3 to Houston. Inter Miami's win this weekend means San Jose now the only team without a victory. They're in the bottom of the Western Conference. Matias Almeida, how much longer are we going to stick with this crazy guy?
Well, if you fire him, you got to pay him out, right? And I think he's gone at the end of the year anyway. So it depends. Do you want to double pay somebody or double pay coaches, pay him out, and then pay for a new coach halfway through the season? San Jose has done nothing over the last few years to inspire me that they want to do something proactive. So they might just let this thing fizzle out and continue on through the year, which is a shame. It's because the fans deserve better, and we deserve better. And it's not that Matias Almeida can't be a good coach. It's just whatever this plan that he has had, it's run its course, and it's not good enough. And you need to make a change. And any place else in the world, this would have been made a while ago.
Dallas 3-1 winners over Colorado. Jesus Ferreira with 2 more goals. He's up to 5, level with Chicharito and Brandon Vasquez atop the scoring charts.
Is he your 9 right now?
So the U.S. has found its center forward. Is it fair to say?
I mean, look, it's just a much longer segment and conversation to have. But to the extent that somebody that has played, this is how I'm qualifying this whole thing. To the extent that there is a male with an American passport that has played that number 9 position, and even that is loosely when it comes to Ferreira, and is scoring goals, great, wonderful, because it's slim pickings right now, as we know. It's an incredible void for the national team, but I'm happy that he is playing. I'm happy that he is scoring goals. He scored some really nice goals, actually, so that's a good thing. And look, if we go to the World Cup in November and December with Jesus Ferreira as our 9, and when I'm saying 9, we're really saying a kind of a false 9, does it fill me or should it fill everybody with confidence? No, but at this point, what else do we have?
And he's supposed to be the false 9 option where you're willing to sacrifice goal scoring because of the other things that he brings. So if he can...
And a change up during a tournament. This, hey, we're going to try this a little bit now.
If he can display also some goal scoring ability along with everything else he brings, then yeah, absolutely, he moves to the front of the line. So it'll be interesting to see. We've talked about perennially good teams that are struggling at the start of the season. Sporting KC lose to Nashville. They've dropped 5 of their first 7. Peter Vermes very frustrated. I don't know.
And the crowd giving them crap over there. They're not happy. Johnny Russell evidently went into the crowd and all sorts of stuff going on over there. And they have, when I say they, the good folks and the Sporting KC fans and the people of Kansas City, they've been spoiled over the years with just a consistency of, at times great, but certainly good teams. And it's just not good enough. And Peter Vermes, we all know he's an institution when it comes to Sporting KC. And, I think talk about a long leash. He is certainly going to get a long leash. But this is not good enough. And Peter Vermes, I think, is expressing his frustration with, and he's talking about, the mentality of the players and, the fight and all that kind of stuff. So it's not necessarily all about the actual talent that he has. But he's got to fix this and quick. And I love the fact that there are fans that aren't happy with their team. I mean, if you're a fan, it's not blind faith, and especially because you're not just a fan, you're a customer, and you pay money, and you recognize that when you pay that money, it's not necessarily guaranteed that you are going to get wins every single time. But at the very least, you should feel you get your money's worth from your team in terms of the effort that they are putting out. So. Not good times for Peter Vermes and company over there in Kansas City. But, I mean, I'd still put money on Peter Vermes finding a way to resolve or fix the situation.
Last game I'll bring up was our FS1 game on Sunday. Austin beat Minnesota 1-0. Maxi Urruti with the goal. In the build-up to the goal, he went down to the ground, feigning an injury. That caused the Minnesota defenders to take their eyes off him, and then he pops up and scores a goal. In the post-game show, Warren Barton was a bit critical of him on that play, and you made some shocking remarks. You said, quote, "I have no issue with diving." Would you like to?
I have no issue with good diving. Okay. So, for those that maybe didn't see the game, as you mentioned, Maxi Urruti, who I think is a really good player, and, he's had a long career in Major League Soccer and has played for a number of teams. He's the first player evidently to score for all 3 Texas MLS teams. So I like him as a player. In a strange way, I didn't think I was going to be rubbed the wrong way with this, but I watched it again and again and again, and he goes down, obviously trying to get the foul, and in that case, because it was in the box, he would be trying to get the penalty. And that in and of itself, as I said before, I think that it is part of the game. I think it is a skill. I think at times it is something to be admired if it is done correctly. But in this case, he did it, and he didn't get the call. I mean, you have to sell it, okay? Didn't get the call. And the ball came right back, and he's rolling around on the ground. He did a couple rolls. He did the finger snap thing that is evidently the international signal for "I'm really, really hurt," and recognized he wasn't going to get the call. Stood up, got the ball back in, put it in the back of the net, and ran 100 miles an hour off to celebrate. And so my point was, it rubs me a little wrong. And again, I will defend diving. I know other people are completely they don't understand it, or they don't want to understand. And that's okay. We can have that argument. But in this case, it was as if, what do they say over there in England? He was taking the piss, or he was he was like shoving it in the referees and everybody else's face by doing something like that.
So you would have preferred a little bit of a limp on the celebration. At least keep selling it.
Exactly, Mosse. As strange as that sells, are you? What's David? Are you having a laugh? Like it was. I will defend, like I said, diving, but in this case, this even made me feel a little dirty, and so I said it. By the way, our friend Warren Barton was not having that first half, but from either team, he was not, and it wasn't a great first half. I didn't think it was as bad as he made it sound like at halftime. Although my wife, she immediately texted me and says Warren Barton is spot on. She was not having the performance of either of these teams because Warren was actually questioning whether any of these players wanted to be there. And it wasn't a great first half, but it wasn't the worst first half that I've seen. The second half was a whole lot better, and obviously we got the goal there, and the Austin faithful were rewarded by that disgusting display by Maxi Urruti.
Yeah, I like this Austin team, although that Cecilio Dominguez situation, we got to wait and see what becomes of that. For Minnesota, Emmanuel Reynoso is just not as influential as...
Weird, huh? It's he's missing something right now. And look, if they need him pulling the strings and being impactful each and every day because they don't have enough around if he goes down.
One last thing on this game, the Diego Fagundes thing is amazing. That at such a young age, he's reaching all these milestones. He made his 300th MLS regular season appearance. He's 27 years old. He's by far the youngest player in MLS history to reach that mark. The previous youngest was Kyle Beckerman at 30 years, 300 something, almost 4 years older than Fagundes when he reached the mark. Yeah, what a fascinating MLS career that guy is.
It is amazing. And I remember when he came along in New England, and for those that don't know, he was, basically one of the first generation of homegrowns, 15 years old. He comes out. We were looking it up last night. I think if I'm correct, he was actually part of Steve Nicol, who has, had a long career coaching the Revolution, a very successful coaching Revolution. But, back in 2010 when Fagundes came on the scene at 15 years old, and he's going to have, if he continues on in Major League Soccer, and, if he was going to go someplace, I think it would happen. But he also has found new life down in Austin, and I think he really appreciates what Major League Soccer has given him, and he's given so much, and he's still got, who knows how many more years to give it. So when all is said and done, who knows how many MLS games, but he might blow it out of the water here. What else, Mosse? Anything else?
I'm good at MLS. You want to transition to CCL?
I will just say, Rob Stone and I sat up late and watched the Vancouver-Portland game. He was nice enough to invite me over and open some bottles of rosé. I'm usually a Chardonnay guy, but he had some rosé, and so we quickly demolished some of that, which helped us with the Vancouver-Portland.
Great game. Portland win a 5-goal thriller, 3-2. Jimmy Chara.
Both Charas were incredible. Both Charas were incredible.
Yeah.
Let's transition over to CONCACAF Champions League, which happened last week and will happen again this week.
Yeah, we'll start with the all-MLS semifinal. I thought this was the best Seattle has looked all season. All those pieces finally clicked. They got Rui Diaz and Lodero in the starting lineup, and they played, obviously, Rui Diaz as a center forward, Lodero behind him, Christian Roldan on the right, Jordan Morris on the left, and then Rusnak alongside João Paulo in the midfield. I don't know if defensively that can be their base formation the whole season, but for this game, it worked. They were terrific. They beat NYCFC 3-1 in the first leg. The away goals rule is in effect, so all it would take is a 2-0 NYCFC win at Red Bull Arena, which doesn't seem that bad, but just the feel coming out of this game, I just felt like Seattle right now is the better team, and I think they have a foot and a half in the final. I think they're clear favorites here, right?
Not so fast, my friend.
Oh, wow.
I mean, would it surprise anybody? NYCFC beating Seattle Sounders 2-0? No. I mean, that certainly can happen. But I do think that, and I think we said this last week, if I had to pick a team to play the winner of Pumas Cruz Azul, I would pick Seattle. And I think that there is a general cautious optimism out there about we know an MLS team is going to be in the final, but more importantly, that an MLS team can win it this year. Yeah, I think NYCFC is going to have something to say against this Seattle team in this thing, but I still think ultimately Seattle goes through.
I meant to check this morning. I forgot. I don't know what Maxi Morales' status is. He was a late scratch in that
right, so he could
first
be back.
leg. But yeah, it was so Rusnak got his first goal for Seattle. Jordan Morris goal and an assist. Ladero scored from the penalty spot, so they're in good shape there. And then in the All-Mexican semifinal, Pumas got a 2-1 home win. Juan Dineno with both Pumas goals. He's the runaway top scorer in the CCL this season.
But they held on for dear life there.
But Cruz Azul pulled one back, which could be a very important goal. All they need is a 1-0 at the Azteca. I will say this past weekend against Mazatlan, they lost Charlie Rodriguez to injury. He's going to be out several weeks, so he's out not only for the second leg, but also the CCL final. Hate to see a young player get hurt like that, but it would help the MLS side, obviously, and if it ends up being Cruz Azul in the final, because they'd be down one of their best players. Keep in mind, results this week are going to dictate who hosts the second leg of the final. And going into this week, Seattle is in the driver's seat as far as that goes. They have the most points of all 4 semifinalists up to this point. So if they were to beat NYCFC, they would host the second leg of the final against the Mexican club. So that's something to keep an eye on. And incidentally, the away goals rule is in effect in every round until the final, but not in the final. So just keep that in mind once we get there. But yeah, so what would you say? Seattle?
So wait, away goals for the home and away for the final are not they effect. Don't count.
Right.
Why?
I don't know. That's how they did it.
That seems strange though, because they're still playing home and away.
Yeah.
Nothing's changing in terms of the.
Yep.
All right.
Okay. And so what would you say? Seattle, and if you had to
Cruz Azul. I think
yep.
Cruz Azul finds a way. Yeah, because I think Pumas was struggling there at the end. Yeah.
All right, that is it.
Okay, let's take a real quick break. Before we take a break, just I guess a public service announcement, because we announced this morning, I say we, Fox, we announced some of our World Cup coverage, and it's pretty exciting. 35 World Cup games are going to be on Fox. That would be Big Fox on the National Broadcast Network. 29 are going to be on FS1. You know it. You love it. FS1. And all of the World Cup games are going to be on the Fox Sports app. All of the U.S. men's national team games in the group stage are going to be on Big Fox. And there's all sorts of different stuff. I tweeted it out if you want to check it out. But it's gonna be really interesting to see these games, and they will be available. They will be easy to find, I guarantee it. But just a little housekeeping there when it comes to that. All right, we'll take a real quick break. When we come back, we'll take a trip around Europe. Don't go anywhere. All right, we're back. Let's start over there in the Premier League, shall we?
Yeah, it's gonna be heavy on Premier League this week. I think it warrants it. We had what I think will be the biggest domestic league match played anywhere in the world in 2022. Manchester City, Liverpool. Reminded me a little bit of that Duke, North Carolina Final Four game recently, where you didn't think it could possibly live up to the hype, and it actually did. It was terrific. The 2 best teams in the world with the 2 best managers in the world, and they put on a show. It finished 2-2. I thought City was the better team. They dominated the first half, should have been up more than 2-1 at the break. Then Liverpool came back strong and had a very good first 10-15 minutes of the second half. But then City was able to reestablish its superiority, not to the same degree as the first half, but I thought they were the better team in the last 30 minutes or so as well. So overall, I think they would be the ones more disappointed by the result given the way the match played out, while Liverpool will feel somewhat fortunate they got a point. Although big picture in terms of the title race, it's not a bad result for City. It keeps them in first place, and they have what's perceived to be the easier fixture list remaining. I don't think it's as big a difference as some are making it out. There's a little bit of that Big Six bias at play where, a game against Manchester United registers as a tougher game than West Ham. I'm not sure if it is at this point. So if you really break it down, I don't think.
Wow, taking shots. Look at you.
But I would agree. I would say it's a slightly easier fixture list for City, and they're ahead. So yeah, what did you make of this match?
I agree with you that this was a wonderful advertisement for both of these incredible teams, both of these incredible managers, all of these wonderful talent that was on the field. It was a great advertisement for the Premier League and why it's special, and it lived up to the hype. It was a fun game to watch. It was back and forth. It wasn't frenetic. It wasn't, you weren't unable to follow it. And I do agree that with you that Man City probably, if they look back on this, would say, yeah, we left some points on the table, and Liverpool will gladly take that point. But I just thought it it was just a fun game to watch, and even the pep high five with and hug with Klopp after it. You can see not just the competitive nature of these two great managers, but also the mutual respect. And they go about their job in very, very different ways. And in very, very different ways, they have created these incredible machines. But I love the fact that it's, there's different ways of doing that. They have shown that each in their own way, they can both create the best team in the world. And it's still argue, who that best team is, as it should be, and that's what was on display here. So It was great.
I thought Kevin De Bruyne was sensational, best player on the field. Even that last play, that through ball he slipped to Mahrez, who then tried to chip Alisson. But I mean, that pass that De Bruyne
outside, and he curled it around the moon and came back, and
incredible. I don't think Liverpool have played that well the last few weeks. There's so many goals in that squad now. There's so much talent. I actually think they have the best, on paper, the best squad in the world, that they can sort of get by on moments, but it's been a while against a quality opponent where I've seen them have a brilliant 90-minute performance. Something's been lost there collectively, even though they, like I said, they can get by because they have so much fire up front right now. And framing that positively for Liverpool, I do think it's an advantage that they don't have to play well to score goals. City do. Liverpool, like I said, I've seen games where they haven't been playing that well, but they have all these match winners now. Salah, Mane, Diaz, Jota, Firmino that can pop up and score a goal. City, I feel like their goals come about due to sustained good play. And, if they were to have an off day, they're more likely to get punished for it than Liverpool would, which is why, despite the fixture list and despite where we are in the standings now, I still lean Liverpool. I have a sense they're going to win it. What do you think?
Well, so what I hear you saying, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is that you look at Liverpool as much more pragmatic ultimately, and they will play poorly but get the result. Now,
well, I don't look at it as playing pragmatically. I just look at it playing poorly. I just think they haven't clicked. I mean, they set out to be an attack-minded side that dominates games. I just don't think they've played that well collectively. But they, like I said, they have so many match winners in that squad now that can pop up and provide moments.
Okay, but are you saying that Liverpool and Klopp will betray their ethos ultimately when all is said and done, and when the chips are down, to get that result? Maybe they're not even doing it consciously. It's just subconsciously that's the type of team, as opposed to Manchester City, which has been drilled into them. This is how we play. Come hell or high water, this is how we're going to do it.
No, I don't think it has anything to do with betraying philosophy.
Okay.
Both teams set out to dominate games and play attack-minded football. But if City are they have an off day where they're not clicking or not in rhythm, they're more likely to get punished for it. While Liverpool, even if they have an off day, I think one of those players up front can get him out of trouble, and they can live off a couple of moments in the game.
Well, so one would argue that that's because what Manchester City is doing is harder to do. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, without having, they don't have as many goals in their lineup. When you look at it, they don't have as many goal scorers. And so, like I said, their goals have to come about more due to sustained good play, and everything has to the pieces have to fall into place more nicely than it needs to.
All right, so you're doing Liverpool. All right.
Yeah, I think I'm leaning Liverpool there. Manchester United lose away to Everton 1-0. I don't know how much there's to say about this Cristiano Ronaldo situation. So it's funny because this incident just happened in Brazil recently too. The striker Jonathan Calleri for São Paulo, after a loss of Palmeiras, did the same thing, and it was a big story in Brazil. And then it happens in England as well. Ronaldo, as he's trudging off the field frustratingly, knocks the phone out of a supporter's hand. It breaks. He's come out, apologized. But, because it's Cristiano Ronaldo, some people are trying to keep the story alive and make it like it was the worst thing in the world. I mean, the kid's mother has come out and had to go at Ronaldo. I mean, what do you make of this whole thing?
Look, should you do it? No, it's dumb. All right. It doesn't matter who you are. You shouldn't do it. It's not your property, and you have to be able to control yourself in that moment, despite the anger and the frustration that is evident. Having said that, now he's apologized. He'll buy the kid, 10 times the phone that he has. He'll give him whatever it is. He'll fix it because he certainly can, and we'll move on. But that it's happening, obviously, to one of the great players in the world and one of the most famous people in the world. I bet you there's a lot of people that slapped somebody over the last couple of weeks that we don't know about and don't hear about. The one we do hear about is when you do it at the Oscars, right? So the stage and who you are matter. So yeah, I mean, it was, for lack of a better word, it was entertaining to see when that thing showed up, but I don't want to make a mountain out of a molehill here.
He offered to take the kid to a game at Old Trafford, which led to like every single person on my Twitter timeline making the same lame joke. Hasn't the kid suffered enough watching this Manchester United? One more note on Manchester United. It does sound like it's going to be Erik ten Hag as their next manager. He's the current Ajax coach. It came down to, it was more or less between Ten Hag and Pochettino, who they were going to go for. There was apparently a split within the club, but Rangnick wanted Ten Hag, which makes sense. He fits more of a Ralf Rangnick profile. And I don't know why you would bring in Ralf Rangnick and then not let him pick the manager. So
that was the plan all along?
Exactly.
I mean, they said it publicly. He's coming in. He's a temporary interim type of situation here just to get the lay of the land, and then he is going to make that decision.
Exactly. So when you bring in Rangnick and then bring Ten Hag, it may or may not work out. We'll see. But at least there's some sort of cogent line of thinking there. It would have been completely bizarre to me to bring in Rangnick and then hire Pochettino, who's going to want full control of everything. And I don't see Pochettino and Rangnick working as well together as Rangnick and Ten Hag will. So
I'm losing track of the moments of despair when it comes to Manchester United. So do you think that at this moment things are better or worse than when Ralph took over? He was installed to at least set the course and set it back on course, not necessarily to bring it to the mount, or not necessarily to have them sitting in first place or anything like that, but part of the assessment here is Rangnick, right? And has he done what he was hired to do you think?
No, it's been a disappointment for sure.
So, so it's a complete failure in terms of the person that they brought in and what he was in charge of doing.
I think they brought him in more long-term, more because he's a good mind to have in the front office. But in the meantime, they thought he'd be a good enough coach to at least get him into the top four, and he's failing miserably.
But that was a dumb decision then. Another dumb decision.
By the way, I do have to say, whenever a club has struggled for several years under different managers, and then they're struggling at present time under their current manager, we all get that it's not that current manager's fault, that it has more to do with bigger issues at the club. And yet people still feel the need to make that point on Twitter, and they say it as if they're providing the most insightful piece of analysis ever. Everton's problems are not all down to Frank Lampard. There's bigger issues at the club. Thanks. I thought Everton were perfect before Lampard arrived. It's just been the last 10 games that
you can't fire the whole team. Oh, Luis sent us some information. Ralf Rangnick has the lowest win percentage of any Manchester United manager in EPL history. Good decision there. But it doesn't. But according to Mosse, it doesn't really matter because it's not his fault. He was just he's been given this tainted team of malcontents, right?
Staying with the Premier League, we can stop down on the Arteta statue outside the Emirates. Because,
right, they're not building that.
Arsenal have lost. They're imploding. They've lost 2 in a row to Palace and Brighton. By the way, Martinelli was offsides. Piers Morgan made a fool of himself on Twitter by not understanding the offsides rule. And now Tottenham have caught fire, 5-1 win over Newcastle, followed by a 4-0 over Aston Villa. They're in 4th place. They have the easier fixture list. So now it's looking like it's trending towards Tottenham getting 4th, which is a fascinating development.
Yeah, Ali Wagner's very excited about her Spurs team.
Question for you. Do you think Luis Aguilar is anti-American?
Oh, yeah, definitely. He hates Americans and America.
I'm looking at this rundown. I don't see Jesse Marsh's name anywhere.
Nothing?
But yeah, Leeds with a 3-0 win over Watford.
Jesse Marsh is American?
Yes. Jesse Marsh pushing all the right buttons there.
I love it. I love it. I'm so happy for him. I'm so happy for him and what it means for the perception of Americans and America and American soccer and all that kind of stuff, and that he worked through. I mean, who could learn a thing or two? Ralf Rangnick, okay? Maybe he should, go back to someone that he taught and understand how you work through a crappy situation and you actually coach them up and you make them better, as opposed to Mosse just saying, well, he's just got crap around him? What's he supposed to do?
Let's transition to Spain.
Okay.
Real Madrid have kind of stabilized things since that Clásico defeat. They beat Getafe 2-0, so they're going to win La Liga. Barcelona won a crazy game away to Levante 3-2. Levante were awarded 3 penalties in that game, converted 2 out of the 3. Luke de Jong got a stoppage time winner for Barcelona, which keeps them in second place. The interesting scoreline here was our good friend Stu Holden had reason to celebrate because Mallorca, who just hired Javier Aguirre, the Mexican, as their coach, he orchestrates.
Oh, he can coach him up. He can coach Mallorca up, but Ralph Rangnick can't. Okay.
Yep.
All right, here we go.
1-0 win over Atletico Madrid. Atletico Madrid need to be careful here. They're only 1 point above Betis for 4th, so they got to make sure they finish in the top 4.
Did you say there were 3 penalties given to Levante?
Yep.
Wasn't that the whole thing about, it's impossible. How can a team get given 3 penalties that we saw Real Madrid and all that kind of stuff? But evidently it does happen to others. Okay.
In Germany, Borussia Dortmund beat Stuttgart 2-0, but the terrible story from an American point of view, Gio Reyna picks up a hamstring injury a couple of minutes into the game, and he's going to be out for the rest of the season. What were your thoughts on this?
Well, first it's the visceral and emotional and personal reaction to seeing not just an American player, but a really, really good American player who I think is going to be a part of the U.S. men's national team for many years to come. With this caveat, got to stay healthy. And I've said it before, it is a skill, and it is something that he has unfortunately not mastered. And I don't know if he ever will. He's still young, and this is when you're dealing with this young generation, really young generation, of players, they're still growing. I mean, Gio Reyna looks differently, physically looks differently than 6 months and a year ago. And so he is continuing to change. And as his body changes, he's got to be able to adapt to it. But, horrible news. And, he left the field in tears again. Now, this is multiple times that we have seen that happen. So he's putting pressure on himself, and his body is letting him down. And the problem is that if this is something that is chronic, when I say chronic, not just a hamstring issue, which he now has suffered from, that could be a problem. But if getting injured is what he does, yeah, that's a problem. That's a problem for him individually going forward in his career. But obviously, it's a problem for the U.S. team because if you can't count on him, you don't want to put a player on the field that 5 minutes in, you're having to make a substitute. And, when we talk about great players in the past, someone like Landon Donovan, he didn't get injured a whole lot. And so it is a skill, like I said, and it is a quality to be admired. Some players are just born with it, and some players actually develop it over time. And whether it's just growing out of a physical phase that you are in, or as you grow in your professional career, understanding what you can and can't do. It was interesting. I was talking to Carly Lloyd, who was on our U.S. Women's National Team desk this weekend, and talking about it. And we were trying not to be too grumpy old man or woman about it, but in the age of data and in the age of the medical information that we have and the tracking that we have, she was saying that she thinks it might have gone too far the other way, where there's too much going on, and we don't let players know their bodies and make decisions for themselves on their bodies. I don't know. I mean, I think information is good, and we know much more about the human body. But man, oh man, this is not. It's not a good thing because, like I said, it would be not a good thing just in general if there was an American player like this. But this particular American player, who I think, if and when he is healthy, is a starter for the U.S. national team. So hopefully he gets this taken care of. Hopefully, like Weston McKennie, who we hear is actually coming back earlier now, but whatever. Gio Reyna takes the time, gets to the summer, either comes back in the summer from a national team perspective, or even takes the summer and gets right into the fall. And hopefully he is playing consistently. But we got to have a consistent type of performance from Gio Reyna week after week, playing, being healthy, and having his body withstand the rigors. Otherwise, it's a problem. What else, Mosse?
Bayern got a pretty labored 1-0 win over Augsburg. Pepe came on as a sub in this game and did some good things.
Yep.
In Italy, a very good weekend for Inter. They beat Verona 2-0. Napoli lost at home to Fiorentina, and AC Milan held to a 0-0 draw away to Torino. So Inter are now 2 points back of AC Milan with a game in hand. If they win that, they'll be back in first place. So that Serie A race, incredible. It's going to go right down to the wire between those three teams. And then Ligue 1, shout out to PSG for saving their best for when it really matters this season. 6-1.
They went on the road and they brought it, huh?
6-1 winners over Clermont Foot. Mbappe and Neymar each with hat tricks. Messi with 3 assists. If you want a tagline for PSG season, it would be Faible contre les forts, fort contre les faibles.
What does that mean? What's that?
Weak against the strong, strong against the weak.
Yeah, they can't bring it when it's somebody on their level, but they'll go beat up on all the little guys.
And by the way, I knew Neymar was going to do this. That guy's been like mailing it in all season, and in the last couple weeks, there have been the first whispers that PSG might want to get rid of him, which he doesn't want that. He's collecting that big paycheck there, so I knew he was going to go on a tear. He has 5 goals in the last 2 games.
He can just turn it on like that. Huh? Amazing.
And then we'll end with the UEFA Champions League quarterfinal second legs. Instead of a Tuesday, Wednesday deal, I'm going to look at it in terms of sides of the bracket. So one side of the bracket, it's the Villarreal Bayern tie and Benfica Liverpool. When that draw came out, I said Liverpool and Bayern essentially got buys, and you could book the fact they were going to meet in the semis. Liverpool backed that up. They went to Lisbon. They won 3-1. Luis Diaz with a goal and an assist. Obviously, he came from Porto, so Benfica was a familiar foe for him. So that one is done. Yeah. Bayern have left some work for themselves by losing 1-0 to Villarreal in Spain. Although I will say it could have been worse. Second straight round where they laid an egg in an away first leg and the other team kind of left them off the hook. It happened with Salzburg in the round of 16. It happens here. Villarreal should have won by more. They had all the best chance in this game. They had a goal disallowed. They hit the post. Nagelsmann even admitted afterwards they were very lucky to only lose 1-0. So now they go back to Germany. Are you still fairly confident they'll lay the hammer down? They beat Salzburg 7-1 in the home leg in the last round.
Plus, there's no away goals. So, right? I mean,
no away goals. Yeah. So yeah, you still think Bayern go through here, and that would set up a Liverpool-Bayern semifinal. Other side of the draw, Manchester City got a 1-0 home win over Atletico Madrid. The lead up to this game was all about the clash of styles between Pep and Simeone, and true to form, Simeone parked the bus. They played essentially a 5-5-0 formation and frustrated City for a lot of the game, but they finally got the breakthrough in the second half. Kevin De Bruyne off a lovely feed from Phil Foden. And then the talk after the game was, again, sort of litigating Diego Simeone as a coach, and would you want him on your team? That conversation has been in the air a lot, which I would say this. People need to remember, 95% of clubs in the world aren't super clubs where it's a given that they're going to win and challenge for major trophies. So if you have a guy that's this good at getting results, you take him and you don't worry so much about the style. But with those 7 or 8 super clubs where it's sort of baked in that with any reasonably competent manager, you're going to be challenging for major trophies, and they're so worried about their brand, there is a question as to whether you would want somebody like Diego Simeone. Like, would you agree there are certain clubs in the world that you look at and boy, it'd be a weird fit putting Simeone on that club?
Maybe, but I have an incredible respect for him, because in a day and age where we talk so much about identity and style and all that, and we all know most of it's bullshit, right? Except for a few elite coaches and clubs. And to be fair, it's because they can do it with these clubs. He has taken what is not an elite club, okay? Good club, all right? And certainly not a bottom dweller, but not an elite club. And at the very least, he has said, I'm going to establish a style. You might not like that style, and there's plenty of people that just, the romance of it or the lack of romance of it, don't like that style. But there is also romance in having somebody who actually does what so many people say and don't do, which is, I am going to implement a style. This is how we are going to play. You are going to associate us with this style. That in and of itself, I have incredible respect for. I do actually kind of want to see what the problem for him is. That his resume is this is the style, and so therefore the assumption is if he goes someplace else, that's what he's going to do. I wouldn't necessarily assume that, though.
I think that. I know there's a school of thought that he's making do with what he has, and if you put him at a super club with those resources, they would play differently. I don't know. I think this is the only way this guy knows how to coach. I know he likes to cry poor at Atletico Madrid whenever it's convenient to him, but they have spent quite a bit of money on creative players the last few years in an effort to be more expansive, and they haven't gotten there because he doesn't know how to get the most out of those players on a consistent basis, and so they end up defaulting back to their old style. So I do think there are some limitations there on how you can play under him.
Well, then he's exactly where he needs to be then. Yeah. So more importantly, does he find a way through?
No, I would bet on City to move on in this tie.
Well, because if you're just going to sit there and defend and you're already losing 1-0.
Yeah, well, yeah, people say, oh, now we're going to go to Spain. It's going to be different. I don't know. If you put these two teams on the field, I think it's going to look exactly the way that
So you're just hoping for that one moment, a set piece or some sort of mistake going on. So yeah, I got Man City going through.
And then finally, Chelsea, Real Madrid. I picked Chelsea to go through. You picked Real Madrid. It looks like you're going to be right. They go to Stamford Bridge. They get a great result, 3-1. Benzema, all 3 goals. Him and Cristiano Ronaldo now the only 2 players ever to score back-to-back hat tricks in the Champions League knockout stage. Pulisic did not play very well, got yanked off in the second half. It's a terrible result for Chelsea. The fact that there's no away goal makes it slightly less catastrophic because a 2-0 win in Spain would at least take it to extra time. No Lukaku for that return leg they've already announced due to injury, so Timo Werner presumably will start up front. Would you give Chelsea any shot here?
No, I don't give him any shot. I think Real Madrid figures just rides this off into the sunset. But when it comes to Benzema, we have this conversation kind of, unfortunately, over and over again because he is the Rodney Dangerfield, if you will, of the sport. Where do you rank him in history? Not just right now, because I know that's the conversation right now. Where do you rank him in history when it comes to goal scorers?
Yeah, very high. I'm
top 25 in history?
Players of all time?
Yep.
Yeah, I think
Let's just go goal scorers, because, that's top 25?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, you phrase it as goal scorers. Let's just say center forwards, because I love the whole package of everything he brings to the table. I think, especially if he goes out and has a great World Cup with everything he's done in the Champions League, his numbers for Real Madrid, the way he was able to play one kind of role.
I don't think he's going to be revered in the way that you're thinking it, though, when all is said.
Yeah, which is a shame, because I think he's really one of the great players of our generation, one of the great strikers of all time. And it's interesting. And to be fair, Luis put this in the rundown weeks ago, and it was the week where you had to cancel because you were at the conference in Miami, and then we never circled back to it. Pretty big announcement. The Ballon d'Or changed the way they're going to do things. Instead of being a calendar year award, it's now going to be for the European season. And so I actually, in my article, I wrote about the 10 best group games at the World Cup. I referred to the Argentina-Poland game as a clash of reigning world players of the year because Messi won the Ballon d'Or last year and Lewandowski won the FIFA Best Award. I'm now realizing that's actually not the case because they're going to give out a Ballon d'Or before the World Cup. And so there's been a lot of talk about that the last few days. Who are the favorites there? And there's a strong sentiment for Karim Benzema. Would you say there's a good case that he's been the best player in the world this season? We're talking the 21-22 campaign.
Well, if you had to win a game right now, would you rather have Lewandowski up top or Benzema?
I would say Benzema.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the contenders for it would be Benzema, Lewandowski, Mo Salah, Kevin De Bruyne. Kylian Mbappe has been incredible. He does get hurt by the fact that PSG crashed out in the round of 16 of the Champions League. So I think what happens in the Champions League here, we still have Real Madrid in it, Bayern, Manchester City, Liverpool, all the players I just mentioned, with the exception of Mbappe, are in the mix. So that's whoever wins it, and what they do in the remaining rounds, I think is going to have a lot to do with who wins it. But Benzema is certainly in the mix. And
all right. Anything else, Mosse?
That is it.
All right, let's take another quick break. When we come back, it's time for Ask Alexi. Don't go anywhere. All right, we're back, and it's time for Ask Alexi. Use that hashtag Ask Alexi out there on the social media platforms. You send us in your questions, or you can call us on our podcast hotline, 657-549-2297. That's 657-549-2297. But I think we got a bunch of Twitter questions here this week, right, Mosse?
I asked for this topic. I'm wondering if this is an actual question or a young Marvin G question, the first one.
Yeah. It's a real question. It's a real question.
At BoxingFan1313 asks, have you heard of any talks between CONCACAF and CONMEBOL about merging to have a Copa America in the future, or are those talks dead?
I I don't think that they're dead. I think that as we go forward, I mean, what year was Centenario that we had?
2016.
2016. For those that maybe forgot, the U.S. hosted Copa America in 2016. It was a resounding success. The U.S. actually finished fourth in the tournament, but it was also incredibly lucrative, which is certainly part of the equation when it comes to what's going on with Copa America. There's this, there's a situation right now going on in the world of teams and confederations kind of looking to trade up. The interesting relationship that CONMEBOL has now with UEFA going forward, and how that drama and that intrigue goes relative to FIFA and all that. There are people talking about CONCACAF and CONCACAF doing something, like you said, with CONMEBOL going forward, or parts of CONCACAF. In the past, we have had the U.S. participate in Copa Americas. I absolutely think that this has legs. I think that this certainly could happen here in the next couple of years. CONCACAF and CONMEBOL merging, I don't necessarily think that is going to necessarily happen, but more and more opportunities for teams to play, including in in yet another Copa America that happens here in the United States, because you make a tremendous amount of money leading up to the 26 World Cup. All of those different things. It would not surprise me in the least if we see that in the near future. What do you think, Mosse?
Yeah, and the reason I asked for this topic is there have been widespread reports the last few days that CONCACAF and CONMEBOL are talking about 2024 staging a combined tournament in the United States. And something's probably a good idea if it has 100% approval rating on Twitter. I mean, this day and age where people like to argue about everything, I haven't found one person that's against this idea. And I'm very much in favor of it too. Now, there's some things that would have to be worked out. Ecuador thought they were in line to host the next Copa America. I don't want CONMEBOL to then try to ram another Copa America in that cycle just to appease Ecuador. They're always looking for an excuse to have Copa Americas.
There's no rhyme or reason with the Copa Americas. They come, they go.
Yeah.
So.
Also, we'd have to figure out, so it would be the 10 CONMEBOL teams and then 6 CONCACAF teams to make it a 16-team tournament. We'd have to figure out how we're going to choose those 6 CONCACAF teams. What would that mean in terms of the Gold Cup? So there are some things to sort out, but nothing that would rise to the level of making me think this is a bad idea. They could figure all that out. So I would love to see this.
And there is some sensitivity to all of this. If you are Victor Montagliani, the president of CONCACAF, yes, you have your golden geese, shall we say, that are the U.S. and Mexico in the same way that, that FIFA looks at the CONMEBOL and UEFA relationship as worrying, as them going off and doing something themselves or taking away what they're doing. If you're CONCACAF, you have to worry about possibly the United States and Mexico doing things that are going to take away from what you're doing for the 41 members of CONCACAF. So there's a lot of things that need to be worked out. But yeah, to your point, I think that this not only do I think it will happen, but I think it'll be an incredibly successful thing. If
this happens, it would create summer of 2024, this incredible tournament in the United States, summer of 2026, the World Cup, and then summer of 2028 Olympics in Los Angeles. So it'd be a nice little stretch of, by the way, speaking of this sort of fight for the control of the calendar between FIFA and the various federations, FIFA have more or less abandoned the World Cup every 2 years idea. But what was interesting about it was Gianni Infantino has walked this back completely and has thrown Arsene Wenger completely under the bus. Have you seen these comments? It was never our idea. We were just asked to look into the feasibility of it.
He's a politician. Johnny is.
You were there. I mean,
yeah. So I mean, look, you throw out things and you see if they stick, right? And who knows? Maybe ultimately something else happens, or maybe ultimately it's just the Women's World Cup that ends up being 2 years, which is certainly conceivable for that happening.
But wait a minute, he's now saying, "I never said I was for this. You were there." Was he in favor of this?
Oh yeah, definitely, absolutely. But people can change their mind, and they can they can bob and weave, especially if they're politicians. So it doesn't surprise me. In the least. And when this is all sorted and settled, it'll be very interesting to what it ultimately comes down to.
Next Twitter question, @InTheMattress asks, do Americans really think the Super Bowl is more iconic than the World Cup? And then something he put in something here indicative of laughing at how ridiculous that is, right?
Yeah.
LMFAOO.
I think that means he's laughing.
Yeah.
In the mattress, do Americans really think the Super Bowl? Yeah. There's lots of Americans. I hate to break it to you, not that I am. If you're listening to this podcast, then you are part of the American soccer community, I would think. And we're going to talk about that in my one for the road. But there is a lot of people, and I'm talking about millions and millions of people that don't know anything about pretty much everything that we've talked about over the last hour and a half. And they don't care. And yet when it comes to the Super Bowl, it is something that resonates and registers with them on a scale unlike anything else. So yes, there are plenty of people and plenty of Americans and people in America that think the Super Bowl is more iconic than the World Cup. If you're just about data and just about numbers, you can throw that in their face all you want about the sheer numbers and the amount of people around the world and the different countries and cultures that gravitate to a World Cup and how the Super Bowl pales in comparison. But this is still an America that is not a country or culture where soccer is king. And there's so many other sports. And what is king is American football. And it has been, and it continues to be, and for probably the foreseeable future, unless something drastically changes, it's going to be. And that's okay. That's where the majority of our history is focused. It doesn't mean that that can't change over time, but it's going to take a long time for that to change.
But your good friend Colin Cowherd, a couple of years ago, put out a list, top 10 most famous athletes in the world, in his opinion. And he had Tom Brady above Cristiano Ronaldo and Lionel Messi. And he got a lot of crap for that. So thinking the Super Bowl is bigger than the World Cup, does it bother you that some Americans just sort of assume that the way things are here, it must be the way they are in the rest of the world? They don't appreciate the global nature of soccer.
We all are provincial at times in our thinking, and we all sometimes lack perspective. And, one of the things that I love about American soccer, or just soccer in general, is the global nature, is the international aspect of it. And as from an early age, that's something that attracted me to it. And I love the fact that it's a sport that's being played all over the world by everybody. And that it gave me not just an appreciation and respect, but a perspective on who I was as an American and who I was as a someone living in the U.S. So yeah, it doesn't bother me when that type of stuff happens. Especially I know Colin very well, and he loves soccer, and he's always been very, very supportive of soccer. And you can be myopic, and you can just be so insular of what's happening that you forget what's going around. And we can do it in soccer too. It happens in soccer where we think everybody's talking about this, and the reality is, so that would just be the opposite of what we talked about when it comes to the way that people view the Super Bowl. We can think that everybody's talking about soccer, and the reality is the very few people ultimately are talking about soccer relative to the other sports.
That Colin list did bother me, which is why I've refused to go on that show. They've asked many times.
But you're going to stand on principle because that's the type of guy you are. I understand that.
Last Twitter question at Malat asks, how good is Rose Lavelle? Absolute gold every time she touches the ball. Engine that drives the train.
She's great. And I think she is going to become even more and more important. I mean, she's already got a World Cup under her belt. She is, for my money, a starter. And she's in that sweet spot right now. And we'll talk more here in a second about the women's national team. But she's in that sweet spot where she's not just bursting on the scene. She's already got the the bona fides of winning a World Cup. So she's got that experience, but she's not viewed as one as the older generation that right now is kind of being phased out. So I think she, maybe more so than anybody, is going to play a not just play a part, but an even more significant part than she already has going forward, and is going to be very, very important. So I agree with you on that.
A couple things about U.S. women this weekend.
Yes.
So they concede to Uzbekistan. I happened to be out on stage because we were having our meeting for El Trafico.
Right.
I turned to Rob Stone. I give him the stat. First home goal the U.S. has conceded since a game against Japan in March of 2020. You tweet out that it's just their first goal period they've conceded since March of 2020. Luis, picking up on your tweet, also puts the wrong thing in the rundown.
We'll never let the facts get in the way of a good tweet.
I promised folks that I would roast you on for this.
So, yeah, feel free to roast me. I made a mistake, okay? I didn't put at home in the tweet that I fired out there. This is interesting because I don't know if you've heard, but Twitter is formulating a edit button. So in this case, I don't know what it's ultimately going to look like, but conceivably, I would have put that out. You would have laughed at me and texted me and said, that's wrong what you did. I would go back, I would edit it, and I would put in at home, and then everything would be fine going forward.
And you don't love this whole edit thing.
I don't. I think it's you don't get to edit when you're talking. You don't get to edit when you. If you want to edit it, then put out a new tweet or delete your tweets if that's what you want to do, and then put out a new one. So I don't quite understand it, and I think it could be ripe for shenanigans, shall we say.
Second thing about the U.S. women this past weekend against Uzbekistan, Carly Lloyd made her Fox debut. She was in studio.
Did a great job.
Did a great job. It was so fascinating to have her there on a day where we were going to be discussing these U.S. veterans potentially getting phased out. I put together a little graphic with Megan Rapinoe, Alex Morgan, Tobin Heath, Kristen Press, Julie Ertz. Crystal Dunn should have been on the graphic. I left her off. That was a mistake.
Because you don't like Crystal Dunn.
And so to have you, Heather O'Reilly, and Carly Lloyd discuss that was fascinating to see that conversation.
It was fun. So let's first off get a couple of things out of the way. The U.S. beat Uzbekistan 9-1. All right? And inevitably, you're going to get the questions, why are we playing this game? And why, this doesn't do us any good, and they get more out of training. This is nothing new. All right? You have the number one team in the world. You have the winner of the World Cup, the Women's World Cup of the last two times, and they're just getting better and better and better. We have a 30-plus year head start on the world, and we have reaped the benefits of resources and personnel and numbers and a respect for not just women's soccer, but for women's sports. So no matter what, even in the most perfect of situations, there's only, let's be honest, one handful of teams that the U.S. actually is competitive with, right? It's starting to change. There are more and more resources being put up, and very, very quickly teams can get up to speed, but certainly not at the level of the U.S. You add to the fact that this is a moment when we have the COVID restrictions that are going on. You had UEFA and CONCACAF, by the way, in the middle of doing qualifying games. So there was a limitation, as there oftentimes is, to who you can play. U.S. Federation didn't go out and say, oh, yeah, we want to go play Uzbekistan. Now, this benefits Uzbekistan, and in the greater scheme of things, this was a benevolent type of thing, but that's not the reason why we played. This was the best thing that we had at the moment. Does Vlatko Andonovski learn a tremendous amount in that game? No. Does he probably learn more when they are training leading up to that game? Yes. But it's not irrelevant, and it's not that it has no value, these games that are played. So that's one thing. Two, you lose 9-1. That one sticks out. And we talked about it after the game. It was on a set piece, so there was obviously a breakdown, and that should stick in their craw, whether you're a listener, the goalkeeper, or any of the defenders, or any of that team. And these are little things that you're looking for, and it's easy just to say, "Oh, it doesn't matter." And I actually was heartened to hear Vlatko after the game talk about how, yeah, we'll look at that, and that's a problem. And it doesn't mean you can't get scored on. But yes, that was the first time since 2020 that the U.S. women's national team has been scored on at home, right?
Correct.
That's the way I should have said it. So thank you for doing that. But there is a changing of the guard going on right now. Whether the U.S. Women's National Team fans want to admit it, or whether some of the players want to admit it. And this is exactly what should be done. There is a whole generation that has grown up watching this team that wants their opportunity, that has had many more resources and many more opportunities and many more pathways to get there. We're starting to see some of them. We saw the trio up top of Macario and Sophia Schmidt and Mal Pugh, and all of them scoring goals and doing well. And so there is going to be an not a cleansing. It's not a cleansing, but a refreshing of this team. And that means, to your point about that, the list that we put up there, and there's a lot. There are certainly players that are in the midst of pregnancy and dealing with that. They might come back. They might not come back. Who knows? So maybe some of them might not be involved going forward, or maybe they want to be involved and they're not ready. There are players obviously that are injured. They may or may not be involved coming back, or they may not come back from injury. And then there's players that are just playing, and Vlatko said, no, it's not good enough right now. And he told us point blank that this was the best national team that I could bring in at this moment. Fair enough. So if the World Cup had started this weekend, that's the team that was going to go to the World Cup. I don't think that that's good enough to win the World Cup, but in the next year, they can get good enough. And I think next summer in New Zealand and in Australia, that this U.S. Women's National Team is going to look very different. There will be the veterans that are going to try to have a say, and some of them will have a say and will be there, but it's going to look very, very different, as it should. And they got to defend their they have to defend their World Cup title, and they have to live up. Vlatko gave me a great quote where he basically said, it doesn't matter who it is, we look to go out and destroy the opponent. And it's not a matter of winning, it's just by how we are going to win that. And that's the type of mentality that has been a constant for decades and decades, regardless of who the names are. And some of these names that are huge, huge stars, they may not be involved going forward. Anything else, Mosse? By the way, some good numbers when it comes to NWSL. Almost 500,000 people tuned in to the San Diego Wave and Angel City game. They're still in the Challenge Cup that's going on right now, but that's good, because we talk about television numbers. That's good.
All right, that's it.
That's it? We got no more from Ask Alexi? All right, we'll take another quick break, and when we come back, it's the end of our show. And at the end of our show, I give you my one for the road. All right, welcome back. It's the end of our show, and at the end of each and every show, I give you my one for the road. This is what I want to talk about today here to end the show, Mosse. One of the things that I have found over the years, putting this podcast out, and it never ceases to amaze me, is how many different types of people listen to this. And look, I know we try not to get too much in the weeds, but what really amazes me and makes me actually very, very happy is that there's all sorts of different type of people that listen to our show. And some of them are tried and true soccer fans and are knee deep and have been doing it for years, and some of them are just coming to the sport. And it's hard to be everything to everybody, but we have tried to make it as inclusive and inviting and welcoming as possible. And I think we have. I think we've done a good job. And when I meet some of these people and I talk to some of these people, it's amazing to hear what their background is. But a friend of mine who is not a huge soccer fan, had been listening to the show. And, this person really enjoyed the show, but talked to me about something and made me aware of something that I had been doing. And I guess it would be called constructive criticism in a really good and positive way. One of the other things that I love to talk about on this show is the tent, the soccer tent, right? And this soccer community that we have, and guarding against being, putting up obstacles and barriers to entry through the things that we do and the things that we say. And this friend of mine brought to my attention that at times I have said our game, right? When I'm talking about American soccer. And if and when you say that, it can make it feel like it is less welcoming and less inviting. And that's not necessarily my intention. And you know as well as I do that American soccer people and the American soccer community, we are incredibly possessive, and we take ownership, and we're incredibly sensitive at times. And we have insecurities, we have all that kind of stuff. But thinking about the words that I use, I would never want anything that I say to be perceived as making it less welcome for people, or being snobby or elitist about it. And so when I started to think about how that would play, I tried to put myself in a position where, I don't know a lot about some other sports. And if and when that happened in another sport, how it would make me feel and might turn me off. And my friend is absolutely right. And it sounds like a small thing. And it is, in the greater scheme of things, a small thing. But being aware that there are people that not just listen to this podcast, but, we have the World Cup coming out this November, and there'll be a lot of people that don't know a lot about soccer that are tuning in. There'll be a lot of people that do. And making sure that we do everything in our power to make it as welcoming, so that we bring those people into the tent, and that we don't say or do things that make them feel, for lack of a better word, dumb, and therefore insecure. And our game is simple, and it is, in its simplicity, it is beautiful. And I know at times we can be tedious and we can be insufferable, and we can be snobby, and we can be elitist about this game. I think, like I said, I think it comes from a good place, but ultimately we have to continue to guard against that, because there are going to be more and more people as this sport grows that want to be a part of it, that see it maybe from the outside and want to find that entry. And if we are putting up barriers that are big, or even barriers in the words that we use, we're doing a disservice to this game that we purport to love. And so, first off, thank you. Thank you for anybody that tunes in. Thank you to my friend for pointing this out. And it was done in completely a respectable and good-natured type of way. But more importantly, it got me to think about these different things as we go on. So it is not our game. It is American soccer. Yes, we take great pride in it, and there's incredible history, and there is ownership, but it is not exclusive. I or you or anybody else out there is no more an owner of it than anybody else. And certainly anybody that wants to come in and be a part of this incredible family, we want to make sure that it is conducive to that, and it is inviting. So anyway, these are some of the things that I think about when it comes to American soccer. Mosse, anything before we go?
I have nothing to add on our game.
No. All right, well, we'll be back again next week. We will, same time, same place. We really appreciate everybody, including my friend out there, that takes the time to listen to it. Even if it's just once, or if it's every single week, all of you, as I said before, it never ceases to amaze me that anybody actually is out there listening, and that there are so many out there that dig what we do. It's very, very cool, and we want to continue to do it, and we'll continue to get better, and we'll continue to, this is a work in progress in everything that we do, and we don't get it all right, and we have, I think, I like to say we've grown over the years, and we've evolved and gotten better over the years. So continue to review and to rate and to download and to click and to do all the different things that you do out there. We'll be back again next week, same time, same place on the State of the Union. Until then, and as always, size the day.
You like that clip? Well, my State of the Union podcast drops every week. Subscribe now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.